welcome to the holiday season. This is another edition of the MTW podcast with my review of the WWE Survivor Series 2015 from Atlanta, Georgia, which emulated last week on pay-per-view. This is the second longest WWE pay-per-view right behind WrestleMania. And this is actually the fourth of the big four pay-per-views that they do, and you guys can listen to earlier podcasts I've done earlier in the year, my Royal Rumble pay-per-view from January, my WrestleMania pay-per-view from March, my SummerSlam pay-per-view review in August, and now this is my Survivor Series. This is their fall pay-per-view, and Survivor Series is usually headlined by a traditional 5-on-5 classic Survivor Series elimination match. Basically 10 men total in the ring, 5 guys on one team, 5 guys on the other, and the idea is that the match goes until every single member of that team has been eliminated. In the past, there's been some pretty compelling Survivor Series elimination matches, most notably one from the 2003 show when it was Stone Cold's team, which I believe involved Shawn Michaels, Rob Van Dam, the Dudley Boys, and Booker T against Eric Bischoff's team, which I believe involved Chris Jericho, Christian, Scott Steiner, Mark Henry, and Randy Orton. And what was great about that team was that, there was a storyline building up at the time where Stone Cold and Eric Bischoff were co-general managers of Raw, and Eric Bischoff was getting tired of Austin, and then Linda McMahon came in and she forced Stone Cold that he couldn't lay his hand on any other wrestlers anymore. And then there was a match made at Survivor Series where if the Eric Bischoff team won, Stone Cold Steve Austin had to leave his job as co-general manager, when in reality most fans knew that he already couldn't wrestle anymore because his last match was at 19 against The Rock. It was at WrestleMania 19 against The Rock, and if Stone Cold's team won, Austin was able to kind of beat up wrestlers whenever he saw fit, and he no longer had a restraining hold. And what was great about that match, the match had a lot of drama, and in the end, the Eric Bischoff team won, and Stone Cold Steve Austin technically left the company. Now, I know in pro wrestling, whenever a wrestler leaves the company or has to quit or is fired, he always winds up coming back. But what I liked about this match was that while Stone Cold hadn't been able to wrestle in a few months, he was still a regular character on Raw. And after Survivor Series 03, that was really one of the last times you got to see Stone Cold as a regular character, and I actually thought they used that match as a nice send-off for that character as a full-time performer. So Austin was never really active after that, but that Survivor Series match in 2003 I thought told a great story, and it was really fantastic. Another really good Survivor Series match, besides the classic ones they did back in the day, was from 05 when it was Team Raw versus Team SmackDown, and they used and you had good guys and bad guys sort of a matchup on different teams, all for a common purpose. And in fact, just last year, they actually did a pretty good Survivor Series show where John Cena's team, it was John Cena's team versus the Authorities team, and if the Authorities team lost, they were out of power. Sting wound up coming in to help Dolph Ziggler pin Seth Rollins, and the Authority was out of power. Unfortunately, that storyline only lasted a few months, but ideally, they would use this 5-man elimination, 10-man elimination style format to help add some drama to the pay-per-view itself. So this year, unfortunately, at Survivor Series, there was no 5-man 5-team. Oh, excuse me. So going into this year's Survivor Series from Atlanta, Georgia, unfortunately, there was no 10-man 5-on-5 elimination match. Well, I take that back. They actually wind up putting them on the show itself, but one of the big failures of this year's show was that they didn't tell you which participants would be on these matches, and they really didn't use that concept to build any storylines, which I thought was a big disappointment. However, something interesting did come in to play going into Survivor Series. A few weeks before the show, Roman Reigns had won a number one contenders match to become the number one contender to face the champion Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns, who's had a busy year, of course he won the Royal Rumble back in January, and he fought Brock Lesnar, really held his own, and took a really bad beating from Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and then unfortunately it was Seth Rollins who actually cashed in his briefcase to pin Roman Reigns in that match in the main event. That kind of screwed both Lesnar and Reigns over when Seth Rollins became the champion. So it was a pretty good tie-in there. And I figured, I'd had a hunch that this might be Roman Reigns' time going into this match. It's like, this might be Roman Reigns' opportunity and probably his moment to win the belt finally. And I figured, Seth had that belt for a while, so I figured it was probably time. It was probably time to get it on somebody new. But unfortunately, before the match happens, WWE had an overseas tour in Ireland and all throughout Europe, and Seth Rollins tore his ACL, MCL, and medial meniscus, so Seth Rollins had to vacate the championship, give up the title, and then Survivor Series was now built around crowning a new WWE champion in a tournament. So the final four guys in the Survivor Series WWE Championship Tournament was Roman Reigns, the U.S. Champion Alberto Del Rio, who has since recently come back, the Intercontinental Champion Kevin Owens, and of course Roman Reigns' old buddy from The Shield, Dean Ambrose. And much to no one's surprise, the final two competitors, were Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. The first match, however, Roman Reigns versus Alberto Del Rio in the semifinal match, was actually pretty good. Del Rio has had a new intensity since he's come back. I am not crazy about the gimmick Del Rio's in with Seb Coulter with this whole Mexican-American thing. I'm really not into it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but Del Rio has gotten much more aggressive in the ring since he's been back, and I appreciate that. Roman Reigns, he held his own. I thought Del Rio carried it, but it was a pretty good opening match. Same thing with Kevin Owens and Dean Ambrose. They were given a good amount of time. There was a lot of motion in the ring. And Dean Ambrose went over on Kevin Owens. It was a good match there. So all in all, it was a pretty good start to the show. And then they give you one of the first unannounced Survivor Series elimination matches, which involved the Usos, the Lucha Dragons, and Ryback against King Barrett, the New Day, and the Money in the Bank winner, Sheamus. And funny enough, they all came out to the New Day's music, all five of those guys. I hated that this was an unannounced match. I really wasn't crazy about the booking. The New Day kind of walked out after Biggie Langston got eliminated, so Sheamus was left all alone. And Sheamus took Kalisto's, Ryback's, and Jey Uso's finishers. So the Money in the Bank winner, who they've been kind of making look pretty dumb, is still being booked to lose. And he lost in this pay-per-view, which we'll get to more in a Sheamus later on in this review. There was a women's championship match, Divas Championship match on the show. Charlotte defended her title against Paige. These two have been feuding now for a little while, ever since Paige, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch, ever since their trio broke up. Charlotte's been the champion now since Night of Champions back in September, and then Paige got jealous and has since turned heel. On Raw before this match, Charlotte and Paige had a contract signing, and to get some heel heat on Paige, Paige had made a comment about Charlotte's dead younger brother, Reid Flair, who died of a heroin overdose a few years ago. So it was a pretty controversial subject to try and get heat on the match, and it may not have been for the best. I was very surprised to hear those comments on Raw before that Paige said to Charlotte. Charlotte I noticed does need to work on her promos a little bit more. She does seem very shy in the ring. I mean, not in the ring. She does feel very shy with a microphone. In the ring, she's quite athletically gifted and talented, so I really hope Charlotte gets more comfortable on the microphone because for crying out loud, your dad is Ric Flair. So hopefully Charlotte gets more comfortable when it comes to talking. Pretty solid match. Good back and forth. They gave it some good time. I think the match was about 14 minutes long. However, the crowd, which was unfortunate for the show, it was not the best crowd. The crowd in Atlanta, they kind of died for this match, which is unfortunate because they did wrestle pretty good. So hopefully Vince McMahon doesn't misinterpret that and give the Divas a little less time to shine because this has been a good year for women's wrestling. Bayley and Sasha Banks and Charlotte and Becky Lynch, all the women, those girls from NXT, they've been put on some really crazy, really good matches. So, and that segment on Raw with Charlotte and Paige closed the show. That was the main event segment. So hopefully the girls get more time because they've been on a pretty good roll. The women have been really killing it this year. So I'm gonna have to give them props for that. Charlotte made Paige tap out, and she won, and she is still the champion by submission. Next up, it was the big Undertaker and Kane, Brothers of Destruction, taking on the Wyatt family, and this was the big 25 years of the Undertaker. I've been a big fan of the Undertaker for a long time. I thought his entrance was cool. I loved how it showed his different formations over the years, and the Undertaker's entrance was actually one of the best parts of the show. So 25 years for the Undertaker. Not a bad match. We wound up getting Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper from the Wyatt family to be in the tag match, which in my opinion was a smart idea because they're a little more stronger workers than Luke Harper and Braun Strowman. So not a bad little tag team match. The crowd was really into it. I'm kind of glad they kept it short. It had some pretty good high spots. The crowd popped when Undertaker and Kane chokeslammed Braun Strowman through the table. I appreciated the match, how short the match was, because I personally didn't have a whole lot of interest going into it. I wasn't crazy about their feud. I was not crazy about the Undertaker and Bray Wyatt's WrestleMania match. I was a little disappointed in that match. But I'm glad the match was kept short. I actually preferred Bray Wyatt's match with Roman Reigns last month at Hell in a Cell. I actually thought that was a very good match. So we'll see what happens with Bray Wyatt next. I am tired of him losing these big feuds, but at least he didn't get pinned. Luke Harper took the pin after getting tombstoned by the Undertaker. So that was pretty much how that match went down. And the finals of the WWE Championship, to the surprise of no one, it came down to Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. Now, with Seth Rollins being injured, I thought here's an opportunity to turn either Roman or Dean heel because they need a villain now. They need a new villain to replace Seth Rollins as he's getting injured. Unfortunately, the match wasn't very long. Some decent in-ring action, but Roman Reigns hit a spear on Dean Ambrose out of nowhere, and ending the match within like 10 minutes. Now, because they've had such a hard time getting Roman Reigns over this year, especially because after he lost at Mania, he lost the Money in the Bank contract back in June, in which Sheamus won, because Bray Wyatt had cost him the match, which led into a summer program with Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt, which culminated last month at Hell in a Cell, and I actually thought the two of them had a pretty solid Hell in a Cell match. But I don't know. I personally thought it would have been a good idea, since Roman Reigns wasn't getting over. It might be more interesting to turn him into the bad guy, and have Dean Ambrose kind of be kind of chasing him, because the fans have been really taken to Dean Ambrose. Maybe not as hard as they were for Daniel Bryan, but with Daniel Bryan out, Dean Ambrose is kind of like the next guy that the fans have been kind of latching onto a little bit, and I thought you could have had something interesting here. You can still protect Roman Reigns, but I think Roman Reigns is in dire need of a heel turn, because I think it would really freshen his character up. I feel like he is a natural heel. I feel like there's only so many people buying into the good guy act, and people don't want another John Cena. So I think Roman Reigns really needs to be tested as a bad guy, like as a singular bad guy. So unfortunately, they didn't do that here. Roman did get his win, his conquering win, when he did fight. He defeated Dean Ambrose in the match, which wasn't that good, but Roman Reigns had won the tournament and became the WWE champion. There is confetti and fireworks all around the arena. Triple H comes down and decides to congratulate him. Roman Reigns does not trust Triple H that much, as Triple H tried to get him to shortcut his way out of the tournament and have Roman Reigns join the Authority a few weeks ago on Raw, but Roman Reigns said no. And because Roman Reigns has a distrust for Triple H, he gives him a spear in the ring. As Roman Reigns is standing over Triple H, Sheamus comes out of nowhere and kicks him in the face, which then eluded him to cashing in his Money in the Bank contract for the title. Sheamus goes for a pin, Roman Reigns kicks out, Sheamus gets up, he waits for Reigns to get back to his feet, hits him with a second Brogue Kick, 1, 2, 3, Sheamus has become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion for the 4th time. A lot of people don't like Sheamus. I can't blame them. I feel like Sheamus has never really had a very compelling character, but what I do like about Sheamus is that he's had some pretty kick-ass matches. He gets really physical, and I do think it could be an interesting change of pace with him as a champion. At least hopefully you'll get a more, tough guy champion, because while I did like Seth Rollins with the title, he was never booked in a strong fashion, which was upsetting, because Seth Rollins is a very talented wrestler, and I can't wait till he gets back. But I feel like this could be for Sheamus to be a transitional champion, because now that Sheamus is the champion, Roman Reigns isn't getting booed as much, and at least when I watched Raw the following night after Survivor Series, Roman Reigns was getting some pretty good chants because people hate Sheamus that much. So maybe what could happen is maybe Sheamus loses the title to Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, and maybe what I think might happen is that Brock Lesnar is going to win the Royal Rumble, in my opinion, and then maybe you'll have a rematch between Reigns and Lesnar. Because I think they might do Undertaker versus John Cena at Mania. So those might be your 2 big matches. So we'll see what's happening. Not the best Survivor Series show. I thought it could have been a little bit better. I would have loved to have seen a more use of that traditional 5-on-5 elimination match. But I was a little disappointed. I didn't really like the in-ring action in some matches. I thought the crowd wasn't very good. There was another 5-on-5 match on the pre-show. So then again, the fact that you would even put the 5-on-5 match on the pay-per-view when it's for Survivor Series, I thought was a missed opportunity. We'll see what happens with Roman Reigns. I did notice as the year has gone by, his reactions have gotten a little bit better. And because Sheamus is a champion now, people really don't like Sheamus like that. So maybe Roman Reigns can get a better reaction. I don't know. I still think Roman could use a heel turn to freshen his character, but we'll see what happens. It's a better option than John Cena. So this is the last wrestling pay-per-view I'll be reviewing this year, as this is the last of the big 4 pay-per-views, and I will get back to my wrestling probably around January when the Royal Rumble comes. Folks, thank you so much for listening to my Survivor Series 2015 review. Not the best crowd environment. It was pretty predictable, the tournament, but that wasn't really the case. Not a creative outcome, which I thought was unfortunate. Sheamus, he's got to fix his character up if he's going to be the champion for a while. Once Brock Lesnar comes back, it's going to be it should make for a more interesting story. So we'll see what happens with WWE going into 2016. But you folks have a good night, and I will talk to you guys soon for more MTW. See you guys later.